Good afternoon. We will now call to order this meeting of the Public Safety Standing Committee. I'll begin by reading the Chamber of Emergency Evacuation announcements and public speaker guidelines. Upon activation of emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use exits to the left, right, or front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and into the assembly area located in the former Public Safety Building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Persons wishing to speak during the public comment period and/or public hearings are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are now allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which assaults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address the question to staff members directly. All questions to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time and further disciplinary action is necessary, which can include bar from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. Madam Chair, this concludes the announcements.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here present today that would like to speak about items not on today's agenda? Seeing none, the public comment period is now closed. We move on to presentations. We have a presentation from RHA's Chief Executive Officer, Stephen Nesmith.
Okay. Good afternoon. Whoop, it's a little too loud. Good afternoon, Madam Chair of this committee, Councilwoman Riva, and other members of the committee, Councilwoman Jones and Councilwoman Baker. Thank you for allowing me to come here today to share with you what I think is an issue of a sense of urgency. First, before I begin, thank Councilman Riva for having an original conversation after I originally gave a presentation, police chief and I, to President Newbill. This started because we believe that enough was enough in terms of when we look at where we are in the Big Six, and it includes our senior sites, where we are year to date in terms of homicides. And that is statistically, year to date, we are 3 more homicides than we were at this time last year. Yes, statistically, overall crime is down, but 3 more. That raises a sense of urgency. And as such, Police Chief and I had a presentation, did a presentation with President Newbill last week. First, we were talking about Creighton, and then we zoomed out and began talking about all of the Big Six. And so that's what I want to begin today. And I'm going to walk through this presentation to talk about what are we doing that's new? What are we doing that's different in this sense of urgency that we have before us? First slide here, I'm going to try to get through this quickly so I can have more on the question and answers. As we know that as the weather gets warmer, we know that statistically crime increases. And so that we said, let's get together, the Chief Edwards and I sit in the mayor's cabinet, Mayor Avula's cabinet, I do, and I'm fortunate to do so. And while we were in a cabinet meeting, Mayor Avula watched Chief Edward and I talk about the crime in the city. And what Mayor Avula said is that I like that interaction, Mr. Nesmith. I want you and the police chief to start talking a bit more, because we always have, but more collaboratively as we move towards the hotter days coming forward, and find out what we can do with a comprehensive strategy to work with our security force, RHA security force, which is called Sentry Force, and to do things more collaboratively and then much more with intentionality as we move forward in the warmer days ahead. What I'm going to present here is not just for the summer and the spring and summer, but it's also will be part of our year-long strategy as we move forward to do better. Our goal is to look at what Chief Edwards and his team has what are called the hot spots in the Big Six, and to figure out how we can look at our force deployment and how we can do that differently and in a way that we can do things better. Some of you may know when our security force, Central Force, are blocks away, or when RPD are blocks away, they have these radios and they will call ahead and say they're coming, and they disperse. We know that this happens. We know that in Fairfield, there was just recently, J.J. Miner called me, the president of the NAACP, who's here, and he said, Mr. Nessa, they're lining up 7 in the morning in one spot to buy drugs. We know that. And so we're trying to work with all more collaboratively with our stakeholders and our partners, along with our PD. Next slide. We also know that we have to, what we're going to do new and different is look at de-escalation. We're going to bring in some de-escalation training for our youth so they can say, you know what, maybe I can say something differently. Maybe I can act differently and do things differently. We're also going to bring in third-party trusted advisors, some of our faith-based community and some of our other leaders to come in and talk to our young people about de-escalation and give them that training. Next slide talks about what I believe passionately. We're not going to have more officers for RPD coming our Big Six and our senior sites. First of all, Chief Edwards tells me all the time, it's tough for them to recruit. And we're not going to have another George Floyd situation. We're going to just policing and bring more police into and security. Rather, to prevent crime, we have to do what Delegate McQuinn often says, and that is idle minds and idle time is a devil's workshop. And so we must create safe spaces for our young people to go. And so what we're going to do more is we're going to be looking at our RHA Youth CEO Youth Leadership and Employment Academy. We're going to start employing, given for the summer, give them jobs for the summer. I'm happy to say that working with our VP of Resident Services, Ralph Stuckey and Mayor Vula and this administration, they've decided that they've identified 150 for the summer youth employment program, 150 spots specifically for public housing residents. That's not enough, but the ones that we can get them engaged, that's a better thing. And so we're going to make sure they get some more jobs and give more safe spaces. We're also going to partner with Parks and Recs and RPS and say, do you have other safe spaces that are recreation centers where our young people can go to those safe spaces so they're not out in the community doing things that they otherwise should not be doing. Also, we have to be real and say that, you know, we just recently, I don't know if some of you saw, there was a raid with the ATF from Washington, D.C. It's not the first raid, but they came here recently. ATF, in coordination with our police chief, and great job, police chief, for coming in. You know what happened? They found hundreds of guns and rifles and drugs in public housing units. And what we're going to say is that while we're providing safe spaces, while we're providing opportunity for self-sufficiency, while we're providing opportunities for home ownership, we're also going to say, not for non-payment of rent, but if you are harboring, because we know it does happen, we got people in these units selling guns, harboring guns and drugs. We're going to say, we're going to use what's called our better use of what's called our 2130 lease enforcement. And that is, you'll give them a citation. And when we see things are wrong, then you have 21 days to abate or correct what's going on. If not, you're gone. And so we think that's important because we find many, many times. And one story we had was on Facebook. We had 2 people who were public housing residents. They were living in Henrico County, and they put up on Facebook that they were subleasing their space in public housing. So we're going to have to make sure that folks are doing what they're supposed to do. And then on Facebook, they said they didn't even care if RHA saw on Facebook that they were subletting their place. They were living in Henrico County. So I think lease enforcement is important. The next thing is resident engagement. Again, we can't just put more security in police. I don't believe in that. resident engagement. But how you engage residents, we must do so in a way that residents do not feel a sense of retaliation. So we have a campaign that we just launched. It's called "If You See Something, You Say Something." We created a tip line so people can see something. Recently, there was a caught on videotape a bunch of young girls fighting, beating, and then guys started beating and became a big old gang fight. And if you see the video, there were people watching the fight as though it was pay-per-view. But there were other residents who were watching who were frightened. And we want them to have if we have a tip line, if they can just anonymously just say, I see something, and we believe can have early intervention and to break up those type of things. So we believe that that's going to be really important. We're also going to make sure that when we're going to provide trauma, because some of our residents, when they see these killings happen, they go through trauma. And so we're going to get funding to help those people do that. I just left the resident, it was called the RTO, our resident tenant council leaders. We're going to engage them more and our tenant council so that they can be part of this "If You See Something, Say Something" campaign. That's, we think, pretty very, very important. I want to end there, but before I go to the question and answer, I want to go through that pretty quickly because I want to save most of the time for questions. I want to say that we know there's no such thing as zero crime. But what I hear every day from residents, when I'm in the community on Saturday and Sundays, and I go in the residence and I see things, Mr. Nesbitt, can you help us make our campaign, our community safe? I know you brought in some free training and free jobs that were some living wages, but I need to have our place safe. We have people who are parking illegal. We're going to crack down on that. We have people, and I want to end by saying this, the majority, I won't say what the exact percentage is, as I work with Police Chief Edwards, the majority of the crime that's committed in the Big Six, including our senior sites, non-RHA residents. So we're going to be working with Commonwealth Attorney, and if people do not belong there, we're going to do barment. We're going to say, you got to go. So thank you for saying that, and I reserve the rest of my time for any questions.
Hey, thank you for this presentation. You did go through it rather quickly, but I'll try to capture the few questions that I have. When you talk about launching this new initiative, because you said it's a new initiative, what communication tools are you using beforehand to build trust with the community so that it doesn't feel like it's an ambush? I'll start with that one.
Yes, ma'am. So what we're going to do is do what we did before a year ago, before we brought in our RHA security force, and they're armed. Before they put any boot on the ground, what we did is with our VP for communication, we held community meetings in every single one of the Big Six communities. And what we asked at that time with the residents, where do you want to see this new security? Where you don't want to see them because they're kids, where you do want to see them, and where you tell us what the hot spots are, because you are our eyes on the ground. So what we will do again is go to the community and say, this is what we want to roll out. Talk to us. I can tell you, we're talking to them every day through our resident services, Ralph Stuckey.
Right. And so has those meetings already been established?
No, we haven't. We're going to start those. As you probably know, we've been involved in a lot of big things in terms of operational reforms and trying to do some good things for the residents in Gilpin and,
right.
And across the other communities.
Operation reform too, so that's why I'm asking. And my other question, when is this starting? Because you said this is specifically, you said when the summer, as the summer, is upon us, we know that, that the trends begin to increase and there are a lot of people and a lot of things that happen. So it says this enforcement strategy, spring and summer, and summer started Memorial Day weekend. So when do we plan on engaging these people, the families or the community about what's to come?
I was just told, because I have a lot of things that I juggle, that we're going to do. First is an ice cream social. First week of June, that will be the kickoff there in Gilpin, and then we'll be moving Creighton, and then we'll be moving out from there.
Okay, and then the other piece you named about the Summer Youth Academy and the young people working. So will these young people be working in the Big Six, or what program is that? And then my other question is, the program, and then when you name the partners and the trauma, what is that? I'm just trying to get a full scope because I know that you're just presenting, and a lot of times we'll get a presentation and that work is part of a process, but I think it's important for the public to know that this stuff is already in place and is happening, not we're building the bus as we go.
For the first time, no, it's not new. I'm gonna have my Vice President for Resident Services, Ralph Stuckey, tell you about what we have been doing. And thank you very much, Councilman Jones, because it is not new. We're going to do more. Ralph.
Good afternoon. Yes, so we have a summer youth employment program that actually we launched about 5 years ago, and it was modeled actually after the Mayor Youth Academy because we actually had been coordinating and working with them since its inception. And so this year, what we've done in partnership with the city is we are expanding that program. They are expanding their program through the YES program, and so they have, I think, about 800 students that actually applied, and they're going to serve about 750. And we know that 150 of those youth will be from our community. And so what we've done in the past and what we'll continue to do is provide opportunities to work throughout our agency. Today, I just got a text from our IT person that they want 2 youth, 16 years old. So we actually mentor them through all our offices, our management office, our technology office, our HCVP program. So they have a wide spectrum of opportunities to serve and learn and be modeled in our communities. And also what we've done, I think also in relationship to COVID, we discovered that our youth don't have access to technology. And so we have actually been developing STEM labs and computer labs in all our sites. We actually have partnered with Apple Computer has done a lot with us, as well as Verizon, and also Microsoft. And so actually we have those STEM labs and kids participate in a lot of STEM activities. Believe it or not, we first had our first robotic league in public housing in 2003. So we've been involved with technology for years, but what we've done is actually double down and actually focus really on providing those services and opportunities to our youth.
So for the number of kids, I'm sorry, y'all. So okay, so for the number of youth or young people for the 150 summer workers, like is that the group that you will be working with specifically in terms of, helping the mentoring, the different things that you have listed here, or is that another group?
Yes, that actually most of that group will be coming from the city. And so that's a group that's 14 to 24-year-olds who have signed up through the city. And so we have a program, our youth leadership program. This year, we're focused on 8 to 13-year-olds. And so they were doing a lot of leadership, a lot of programs and activities to help them in terms of development, life skills, and those types of things, in addition to participating in a lot of field trips, cultural enrichment activities to kind of expand their perception and idea what they can be, what they can become. And so that's a program that we're doing in-house that we'll be serving that age group this year, in addition to working with the city with the 150 so youth that they have identified from public housing.
All right, last question, y'all. I'm sorry. This everybody knows like I'm very passionate about this, so that's why I'm asking all these questions. I think it is important, and I appreciate all of the intentionality and what you are trying to do. And you're absolutely right. We do know, and I'm always worried about summer. The chief will tell you. So I am grateful to see something being done and making sure that we put our young people first, that it is a priority, and that it's not just something that we're putting together as a presentation, that it is actually happening, and that we can see the results of that come summer, come into summer. And so the other question I have is where you said de-escalation training for youth to reduce crime. Like, what is that, and how is that going to be happening? Again, is that a part of the programming, or is that a part of a community initiative? Because I'm hearing a few things. Like, I'm hearing working, I'm also hearing in the community, I'm also hearing in our centers, we have STEM and this and that. Like, I'm hearing multiple things. I'm just trying to piece it together.
So you're right. We'll be doing all of those things and more. To your question around de-escalation, we are going to try to bring back to the table a group called Real Life, who we were going to deploy in the Big Six, and was going to provide free de-escalation training through a grant that we were getting from the State Attorney General's office. And we think that's important. And additionally, our current security force, all of them are trained in de-escalation as well. To your point, I want our Senior Vice President just to elaborate a little bit, since you're so passionate about some of the items that she just referred to, please.
Thank you, sir.
Senior
up.
Vice President, what's your name? Your title?
How you guys doing today? My name is Corey Franklin. I'm the Senior Vice President of Affordable Housing here at Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority. Just to give some background, so I just want to say this, in regards to de-escalation, RHA under Mr. Nesbitt's leadership, we have hired some de-escalation specialists so that when incidents do happen at our management offices, we meet with the residents. So if me and Mr. Nesbitt were both living at Gilpin, we have a situation, we have our de-escalation specialists go to that management office with the two residents and the property management company to see how we can defuse the situation so we can keep both parties housed. So I just wanted to answer to that part. And then another question you had asked is a lot of things that you see in regards to this plan says spring and summer. So under Mr. Nesbitt's leadership, we have started some initiatives to get the word out to the community that we are taking a deeper look at crime and safety within our family and our senior sites. One of the kickoff events we had was Earth Day. Because we think that we want to make sure that all of our residents have a clean community. So we use Gilpin Courts as our inaugural site where we removed gang graffiti off of the walls. We cleaned up drug paraphernalia from a lot of the sites, as well as trash and debris. We feel that if a family can have pride of where they live, it may be able to deter some crime and kind of have people use our tip line because they see the initiative that RHA is putting into the community. In addition to that, we did have a community walk with RPD, and we're looking to plan more community walks so we can make law enforcement a little bit more visible at Gilpin Court so that they can see that it is a partnership and we do not have to look at our police enforcement as an adversary. And then also, we're looking to plan a big event called National Night Out at our public housing sites. And what that is an event where it fosters the relationship of our criminal justice or our police department along with our residents. And it's a kind of like a showcase where the residents get to meet the police force, ask questions. Children are able to look at the police cars or the fire trucks as well. Thank you. So
I could go all afternoon, but I'm gonna say thank you and let my colleagues ask their questions, but I appreciate it and I really look forward to hearing and learning more. Thank you.
Stephen, I want to say thank you for all that you've done and for all that you've done. I know that you've been to many of our 8th district meetings and you've answered questions when the citizens have had questions. You've been very, I guess I should say, anytime I've called, you've always taken my call, even if it's 11 o'clock at night. You've
Saturday and
taken my call.
Sundays too.
12 o'clock, yes. And I appreciate when you were asleep, you took my calls. But I just want to say thank you. And you have really, really made a big difference since you've been here in the city of Richmond. You've been very open to us, all of us. And I believe that's what the residents needed. And you know what? Like you've told us, sometimes you have to put your foot down. Sometimes you have to let the people know who's in charge. And you've done that. And I know that you've probably gotten some backlash, but you still held your head up high. And you've got that board that's with you. And I know that this council is with you. Plus, you got other organizations that are helping you. And I had a couple questions for the police chief, because I know that you mentioned earlier.
He's my partner. I'm willing to share time
I heard that.
with him.
With the
I
mayor.
don't know if you all know, he played basketball, but not at University of Richmond. I played at the better school, the American University in Washington, D.C. He and I have not had a one-on-one basketball. Chief Edwards.
Yeah, I bet they have. Yeah.
One-on-one anytime.
Uh-huh. Oh, we'll come see that.
Yeah. All right. Rick
Chief-
Edwards, Chief of Police. Madam Chair, what can I answer for you?
Yeah, Chief, Stephen had said something about that y'all were partnership like with the children, like with maybe different, I don't know, with like a PAL program or different things like that. So
Yeah,
that the police.
This summer, what we're trying to do is open up some of the gyms for a safe place for kids to go. Last year, we were at the Gill Center in Fairfield. So that is the goal this year with Parks and Rec and Next Up as well.
Okay. Because I think that's what, the youth they need to see that. They need to see the interaction between you and, Stephen, because to me, it brings everybody together. And you've got a lot of partnership here today with us, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And, whatever we can do to help this, this committee, let us know. And I like that one-on-one. I think everybody would be interested. Go ahead, Stephen.
1 second. Yeah, so one of the things that, say, please. One of the things that we want to do is that I told my staff is we want to make sure that when you all have your hotspot events, your pop-up events that you have, we've got to be much more integrated. VP, resident service, and our security team, so that when you're doing those, we are there. For instance, consistent with that point, we have JJ Minor, president of NAACP, June 6th. We're going to be partnering with them. 17 gun violence hotspots and here in the city, and we're going to be partnering with them with that. But yes, with it relates to police, Chief Edwards, you're doing a great job, Chief Edwards. And I'll just say that we do and we should, and we're going to make sure that we are more connected when you have your events.
Right. So we'll be having a pop-up in Fairfield next week. And then as the CEO talked about, the NAACP has piggybacked on our hotspots. The 17, they're going to have events. They did it last year. So this is the second annual. Last year, it was incredible because it was really organic. We went to all those areas where we're experiencing gun violence. Some of them were just barbecues and just good conversations, but some turned into real conversations with adults talking about what is leading to our murders. Now, certainly when I look at RHA public housing communities, they're not all the same. So Fairfield has an open air drug market challenge. We've executed 15 drug related search warrants there. So that's the need in Fairfield. We have to disrupt the drug trade there. And that's leading to some of the violence we're seeing. The other 5 are generally arguments that are escalating into gun violence. And that's where I think, we can attack the problem from a violence intervention model where you're talking about de-escalation. You can also have a deterrent strategy, but it has to be a conversation with adults who are watching these fist fights that escalate. As he mentioned, there are numerous videos where there are fist fights that are being filmed, placed on TikTok, other social media forums that escalate into real world gun violence. And that actually happened in Gilpin Court, where a 15-year-old girl was in a fight with a 17-year-old young man. They're fighting, adults are present filming it. And they captured on that film her murder. Now, thankfully, it didn't end up on social media. We were able to get those videos to use in court, but the intention was the same. That could have been stopped by some of the adults if they saw this fight escalating, instead of filming it, instead of trying to get clicks off of it to de-escalate that. So I think that has to be part of the solution.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Just a few questions. One, Chief, with regard to the trend now of watching fights happen and recording them for clicks, is there anything we can do legislatively or enforcement wise that, to me at that point you're sort of privy to that, you're accomplice to that murder. Is there anything we have in code right now that we can do to start enforcing when people don't step in or when they're just encouraging it or watching it?
I think there's a high hurdle for criminal holding people accountable criminally, but the CEO and I have talked about the power that they have to enforce lease agreements, to encourage behavior of the leaseholders. Not that everyone needs to be evicted, but they have a lot of information. And when we're getting these videos, sometimes they know who the person is and that can be part of the evaluation. The other issue, when we look specifically at, it's not just the fights on social media. Another trend that we see is people bragging on social media about having firearms and calling people out, posting their location, calling people out. And we have community members. What I would encourage everyone to do, and we get a lot of that, is to send me those tips, send our officers those tips so we can intervene quickly. It can be as simple as a threat in a certain geographic area. If our officers are made aware of it, we can surge resources to to that location and try to intervene before it's too late. So that's another piece of the puzzle that I think often gets overlooked. And it starts almost with education, because it's too late when we're at a vigil and a parent knows now what led to that murder. So I think getting that word out that this is very serious business. If you are embarrassing someone in person, there's a limited group of people that see that embarrassment, and the shame that one feels and the need for retaliation is limited. When it's thousands of people seeing it, the embarrassment on social media, that's when people take to their guns, and it escalates into gun violence. So I think it's about pushing that message, making sure that everyone understands how serious it is. And like I always say, I used to just talk about parents should be checking their child's bedroom for guns and drugs. They should be checking their book bags. That's part of it, but you also need to be checking their social media platforms, and you will see it. We saw that with many of our high-profile murders when even the media got access to the publicly facing social media of some of the individuals involved. They saw people standing there with guns, making video threats, and when I see that, I see a lost opportunity for us to intervene before it's too late.
And Councilwoman Abel Baker, I also want to say, you asked, what can you, Abu Bakr, you asked, what can you all do, right? One of the things that we will do to help you out is that when we start moving forward with these lease enforcements, I'm going to ask that our VP for communication, we're going to send it to you in advance, because what we see also in the case of non-payment of rent, sometimes they'll go to a member of city council, I'm being evicted for the wrong reason. So what we will do as we move forward with this lease enforcement for folks, we will then communicate it before, so that so you know before in real time, so you can have in front of you. So when they come to you, you can say, wait a minute, this is the reason why. So we'll empower you with that information.
Thank you. Just one last question. I mean, I know that, what are the metrics that you're going to use to sort of gauge success over the long term? Because a lot of these things are spring and summer, they're discrete events or projects, but I know Councilmember Jones especially knows that deep work in the community takes time and relationship building. So I don't think a summer will get you very far. So what are the ways, one, how are you continuing this work and deepening it throughout the entire year? And then two, what are the metrics that you will use to say, okay, this program or this action was successful?
So a couple things. First, we will say our program are successful when several metrics hit. Following: one, how many youth have we been able to get off the street in the summertime into safe spaces and to employment? We want to be able to look at, because that's an immediate metric, because at least you can discern and say, well, that's a group of 250 that otherwise would have been doing something. That's one. Two, we can look at our metrics, our statistics we get from the police chief, overall crime, right? So we get it a snapshot month to month. And so that we can, at the end of the summer, let's say, and at the end of the year, we have a spreadsheet that we get. We can say, how much was the overall crime activity down? As I said before, year to date now, overall crime in the Big Six are down, but doesn't mean anything because we're up 3 homicides. So we'll be looking at the reduction of overall crime in specific categories. We're also going to be looking at the success, and I have to say this, in terms of how we move our residents to self-sufficiency, right? We have to say that we sent 16 public house youth to colleges and to J. Charles Reynolds, and they were able to uplift themselves. That's another success metric, because if we don't do that, they'll stay there in public housing. I grew up in public housing. We want folks to go to self-sufficiency and go where they want to go. So that's a metric. How much are we really providing self-sufficiency opportunities for our youth and our adults? Those are just some of the metrics. But we will come back to you since you asked that question, and now you've given us homework as to what other metrics that we can do. If you're talking to my staff, they say I'm a driver all the time, but now this assignment's not coming from me, it's coming from council, so don't blame me. So we're going to figure out some additional metrics and we'll get back to you on this.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you both. And we'd love for y'all to come back and maybe maybe a couple months with the update. Yeah, in a couple of months. It sounds good. In the fall.
Okay.
Then you can tell us what you're going to be doing from the fall on through to the winter.
Yes.
Yep. And one thing I'll just share, this past week, we had our training for Operation Safe Summer with our federal and state partners. It starts Saturday. So you will be seeing Virginia State Troopers, ATF agents. As the CEO mentioned, they posted one of our search warrants we did in Fairfield Court, where lots of guns and drugs were found in an apartment. And I can tell you that every time I go to those places, well, I need to be clear, nobody wants to feel over-policed. But when we're out there on a search warrant, people are walking past me saying, "Thank you, Chief, more." They're posting it in positive ways, saying the search warrant just happened again. Please get these areas, because what I've come to know working a majority of my career in public housing communities are that there is maybe 5% of people causing all the problems. It's majority older folks, women with children that are there that feel trapped and want to feel safe. And, we need to continue to do that in an ethical way and in a way that makes sense. And we will, once we're done with Operation Safe Summer, I can come back. I do a quarterly press briefing. As you know, I'll bring that same briefing here and let you just fire all the questions you have for me. And we'll have some metrics on what we actually did to increase our presence and lower crime in these areas where we're experiencing gun violence.
Thank you, Chief.
Sorry. Chief, I just have one more question. One comment, I guess. For the pop-up for this Saturday, well, you said Saturday, right? The hotspot. When is the 6th?
There's multiple things going on.
The one with NAACP. When
that is the 6th.
Friday. So is that something that has been, are you all publicly sharing that, or is that something that is more internal? And I guess the reason why I'm asking, because I feel from a council perspective, I think all council members should be, aware of these hotspots, whether it's in their district or not, to understand the, kind of brevity of what is happening when we're thinking about violence. So I just want to know, is that something that's shared, not just at public safety, but is it shared with all of council, so that they can also show up or be a part of it?
We're going to amplify it, but it's, JJ's here. I don't know if he want to talk about the
Would love to.
strategy. So,
Yeah.
all right. Read the crowd.
We know you didn't come to speak, Mr. Minor, but I was thinking about, I know last year when they did it, a lot of folks on council didn't even know anything about it.
Okay.
So I want to know, how do we make sure? I think this is a citywide initiative and a citywide problem, whether you live in certain hot spots or not.
Right.
And we need to begin to be inclusive of not just you all doing the work. Folks need to know where this work is happening at, so that we can be supportive of what you got going on.
Well, thank you for calling me to the microphone, Councilwoman, and to the chair, to both council persons, and who are some of the. First, I want to say thank you, Chief. You're doing a fantastic job, and thank you, Mr. Nesmith, for the collaboration and bringing us in to help assist with the efforts of tackling crime, which is very important to me and important to the NACP as well. But yes, Local Day Out is basically a day of loving on our community, crime prevention, barbecues, cookouts, even voter registration, getting folks engaged and informed. And if you see something, say something, trying to encourage residents to speak up more. And I think a lot of that has been going on, and that's why you've been seeing the rise with the ATF and the police doing a fantastic job as far as getting, especially this thing called fentanyl off the streets. A lot of guns, a lot of crack, cocaine, pills. And at some point in time, I would love to hear how many guns or close to it we've gotten off the streets, how many arrests we've made, and how much, what does the drugs equate to? How much as far as like 100,000, 200,000, because they've been doing an extraordinary job. It's gotten to the point where even residents are posting when the arrests are happening and doing a live video. And it's also to let folks know that we're not playing no more. We care about our community. We care about the streets. We care about the residents. And also to make sure that residents are not in fear of what they're seeing. So that's what Local Day Out is about on June 6th, getting more resident engagement, building that trust that you are looking for too as well. And we definitely want City Council to participate. We want the mayor to participate. I think we reached out to some council persons last year, and I think they reached out to some this year. And we're not now. All of the districts are not included in the hotspots, but 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, I believe 9 are the majority of the hotspots. But we definitely want other council persons to come out and visit and talk to residents and be a part of this movement. It's important that we work together. It takes teamwork to build. I mean, it takes teamwork to make the dream work, and it takes all of us raising children. It takes, we all have to get it going and make it happen. So, thank you so much. Anything else that you all would like to ask me?
Could you please state your name, title, and affiliation for the record?
Yes, ma'am. My name is James J.J. Miner. I'm the president of Richmond, Virginia branch NACP, and also a strong community advocate and activist for the city of Richmond, actually for the state of Virginia. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of your
God
work.
bless you.
JJ. Appreciate you.
Thank y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to RA and DECPR's data comparison with Chip Decker and DECPR.
Hi, Chairman Trammell. I think I might be able to help some here. You all had asked the staff to get with the Department of Emergency Communications and the Ambulance Authority to help develop this side-by-side document. And I think with their help, we were able to do this and meet at your all's request. And we had a very nice meeting in which they agreed that the data is set up here. It started with a foundation provided by the Ambulance Authority. Is accurate, and that they would be able to come here to take any remaining questions. This started with the presentation earlier in the year by the Ambulance Authority's annual report, and with a request from Councilwoman Lynch. And so we've been able to assemble this with their help, and the staff, our staff. I think Ms. Davenport was here. But this is what we're able to assemble, and they're available for any questions that you all might have. Essentially, what we've done is have a chart in front of you that has data that, let's see, it gives you some comparison, starting with accreditation standards, and then with call answer data, which the percentage of callers that are compliant with standards, and then at the last one, how quickly calls tend to be answered. I will have to defer to experts about how this all works, if you all have any questions.
Do you have questions? First off, thank you. This was what we were trying to get to. I know that Councilmember Lynch is glad to see this. I don't know if it just makes sense to have DECPR come up and then RAA. I think, this was very helpful in terms of direct data and information that we were looking for. Now I will ask questions for context. So in relation to DECPR, I know that, it seems like that 90% rate of answering a call within 10 seconds, it's something that you all are struggling with at this current juncture. Can you maybe give me some context to the barriers? Is it structural? Is it equipment? Is it training?
So good afternoon, Tori May, Deputy Director of Operations for Emergency Communications, Preparedness and Response. To provide a little bit of context on what those numbers are, they fluctuate week in and week out, sometime month in and month out. The snapshot that was provided was a 6-month window. And to kind of touch bases on the data that was provided, it's kind of twofold. So the first set of data there addresses the goal was to try to get as much of an apples to apples comparison as possible, which is very difficult at best. Neither agency performs this function at the same point in time. So what we looked at was an October to the end of March comparison. They're from 2 separate years, but that's the closest data we can get. The percentages that are shown there, our data is showing from October 1st of 2024. We just went live with this process July 8th of the same year. It's kind of a one-year burn-in period where priority dispatch kind of looks at your data to see whether or not you're at the position where you can move forward with even seeking accreditation. So we tried to get as close as we could, but again, there's no set point in time where both agencies are taking the same information. As well, the second set of data that addresses car answer times shows the primary difference between the data on the left side versus Richmond Ambulance's data. The data that we provide is all encompassing of police, fire, and EMS calls, as well as animal care and control and anything else that citizens dial 911 for. And the RAA data kind of contains data from when we transferred calls prior to July of 2024 to the ambulance authority. As far as the 90% goes, again, that fluctuates. Currently, we're meeting that standard, and it's more of a goal for 911 centers. It's difficult to obtain, but what that primarily addresses is when we have sufficient staffing in place as far as call takers go. It's a daily snapshot of how fast we're able to answer call when callers call in.
So right now, I mean, you're not hitting that number. I know that these are two different time periods, but I mean, I think based on Chief's crime report year over year, they're comparable in terms of, like, I would assume call volume is relatively comparable. You have a year to get to 95%. Is that correct?
So again, the data that's here, it's not encompassing of present day. This shows between October and March 31st of 2025. And so what this kind of shows is kind of a law of averages over that 6-month window. To get a good idea of how you're doing it, you probably want to look at it on a monthly or weekly basis. This information we compile on a weekly basis, actually daily. There are pockets in time in which we may have a day in which 100% of calls are answered within the correct time frame, within the first 20 seconds, for about 5 or 6 hours out of that day. If you have a 2-hour window in which those answer times dip, it affects the daily. So what we try to look at is if we have pockets of time in which we dip anywhere below that 90% of calls answered in the first 20 seconds, we try to look to see what was happening at that time. Some of the things that kind of drive those numbers is not just staffing, it's also the nature of calls for service that come in during the windows in question. There could be a time frame in which you see a dip in productivity that's due to a high impact incident, such as traffic incidents that occur on the interstates and highways, which cause peaks in call volume, as well as high impact incidents like shootings or any other violent crimes that happen in the city. And again, so the numbers that you see before you are from October 1 through March 31st of 2025. So the average that you see here is not always going to be indicative. I don't like to refer to the numbers as being stale, but they're kind of stale data. We could have 100% this week, and then next week the numbers drop back down. The key thing to point out is it's not due to a lack of the efforts of the communications officers that are answering phones. A lot of it just kind of depends on what's happening in the city. We like to point out that our jurisdiction is the second busiest call center in the entire state of Virginia, only second to Fairfax, which their population is about 4 times what we have. And also, it's the nature of the calls for service that we're receiving. When we have random gunfire in neighborhoods, such as things that are happening in the Big Six, sometimes it causes peaks in call volume and makes it a little difficult to meet that demand. But the folks are always ready. I like to try to encourage everyone to kind of come down to see what that operation looks like. It gives a better idea of what we're facing on a daily. Our daily operations are kind of split up into call taking and dispatch functions. We currently handle dispatching for the police department, Richmond Fire Department, as well as animal care and control, with Richmond Ambulance Authority still conducting their own actual dispatch of the units.
Can you, I mean, so again, I just want to make sure I understand this. I mean, yes, this is a snapshot, and yes, this is a little bit stale of data, but I mean, overall, it's a comparison, 6-month average. It's not like we compared October to March versus March to July. So I think it is a fair comparison. I do, even if you're getting it 100%, if you go back to being sort of non-compliant another week, when the person who's calling on the bad week gets, is in the non-compliant week, that's still a very frustrating experience for them. One of the things that we had talked about before was the miscategorization of calls, and that being sort of a continuous training. What additional training since February have you put into place for your people or offered your people so that they have a better understanding of categorization, particularly of medical calls?
So in particular, all of our employees that answer 911 calls using priority dispatch's emergency medical dispatch protocol, we've all been through the same training. We're in the process of scheduling some in-person actual refresher training. They provide online training, but we're trying to have some situations where they come in and actually do it in-house. The goal is to have that scheduled prior to August 1st of this year. And as well, the non-compliance portion there is part of what these numbers are tracking is whether or not you're repeating pretty much word for word what the protocol system is asking you. There can't be any deviations in the forms of questions that you're asking, so they prefer that you read word for word from a script, as well as some of the calls that come in that are showing that they were necessarily not categorized properly. What happens is when you're taking these emergency medical dispatch calls, we had a few in question that were when you start the call, because of the aggressiveness of how the city does dispatching and processing of calls, we utilize the location and the main event that's occurring, and we handle dispatch. During the event, while you're triaging the call, there are time periods in which if the location of the injury on a body shows a certain, based off of about a minute and a half into the call, the system itself, our priority dispatches system, would downgrade that call from like a priority 2 to a 3. And so we've seen those situations as well where it's not necessarily miscategorized. It's just the way that the protocol system categorizes the calls after they've been completed.
Okay. And then lastly, before I ask questions of RAA, one of the things that's not on here that we continue to ask about is how many calls at this current juncture are being answered versus calls going to an automated message.
So that number is kind of difficult to try to pull and extract, and we'll do our due diligence to try to see where we can find that and where that kind of came from. Years prior to once Mr. Willoughby came on board, this is since 2015, we used to have situations where the phone would continuously ring and citizens would complain stating that, well, I called 911, the phone rang and rang and rang. So that messaging that's on there present day is to try just to reassure a caller that, yes, you've actually reached the 911 center, don't hang up. And as well, we have a component in our phone system present day that just got turned on within the last year or so that allows us to call back hang up callers. With the increase in cell phones, when I began here years ago, as a lifelong citizen of Richmond, when I started, the bulk of our calls came in from a landline, just from a residence. So you can see the address, you have automatic number and location information. With the use of cell phones, we get pocket dials more than we used to. So the system we have in place now allows us to, the system will automatically call those callers back to let you know that your call was missed, to see if you actually needed 911 service or if it was a misdial. So that's helped us to kind of go through and triage some of those calls to make sure we're not calling back. The issue that happens when you have to do those callbacks, as you know, just on a regular phone call or even on a landline, if I'm calling you back and you're calling me back at the same time, you get a busy signal. And so we just try to make sure that citizens are aware that, you know, we're still there and that we care. Once you have an opportunity to come kind of see how this works at the center, you'll see that the individuals that are working there are working probably about 4 or 5 times harder than individuals in other localities. At most 911 centers across the country, they're kind of small. We're considered to be a large public safety answering point or PSAP. And in our jurisdiction, Again, the call volume is just much heavier. So the individuals are processing calls accordingly, but it just depends to what nature of calls they have to triage, how long it takes. And so, again, we still do our due diligence and make sure we're working established training. We have roll call sessions before every shift. So any of those major issues that are identified, we try to triage those and work through those on a daily basis.
I want to be clear. I have the highest regard for call takers and dispatchers and know that they're working incredibly hard. I think what we're trying to get to is this the most effective use of taxpayer dollars? And if not, how does the system need to change, and what supports do call takers and dispatchers need, regardless of whether they're wearing a DECPR badge or a Richmond Ambulance Authority badge? Yes, I think as follow-up, if we could get information on whether you call it a automated message, a busy tone, just the percentage of calls that aren't being answered within that 20-second range, that would be helpful.
Understandable.
Any other?
So one of the things that was just pointed out is previously there was a 3-second threshold that was established when you call 911. If your call doesn't get answered, then that in the 3-second window is when you would hear that automated message. It's been adjusted to 20 seconds to try to give a little more of a grace period for an individual that, because the perception could be that it's like a voicemail, but it's actually not. There's a functionality there that for non-emergency calls could have possibly been placed on hold, but we don't place emergency calls on hold. So the perception may be that it's like a hold or something of that nature, but now that system has been adjusted to 20 seconds. So the phone will ring for 20 seconds prior to hearing that announcement.
Okay. Yeah, still getting that information would be good. Yeah.
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll ask RAA.
Watch out.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Chip Decker, CEO, Richmond Ambulance Authority. I'd like to start off by thanking Steve Taylor and council staff for putting together what you see before you, and with DEC for all of us coming together and saying, yeah, the data is the data, and being able to present it in a straightforward and hopefully meaningful manner. I would like to say that at our last board meeting, the Richmond Ambulance Authority Board of Directors did vote to support the return of emergency medical dispatch to the Ambulance Authority in the best interest of the public. And we have a proven track record of the consistency for providing it, and I think the data shows that we can assist in making the whole experience more successful.
Thank you, Chip. Yes, obviously the numbers are pretty clear. I guess my question is, and I had the same question for DECPR. One, I'm coming to this new, right? Because I came after the transition, but and this isn't for you, Chip, but just kind of hypothetically, like if it wasn't broke, why did we mess with it? And then for you, Chip, for Richmond Ambulance Authority, what is the benefit of getting it back under Richmond Ambulance Authority? Like, sounds like it's sort of a painful thing, and people are struggling to get staffing and to get the right training. So what are the things that make Richmond Ambulance Authority different?
So yeah, the to answer the first part, but how did we even get here in the first place? It was one of the recommendations from a consultant report that the city commissioned a couple of years ago. And there was a bunch of, suggestions or recommendations in that, one of them was that, okay, we try and co-locate there. And if that, and okay, the thought was from the administration that it was poor customer service to add somebody else onto the line. If you watch any true crime shows, the first question, police, fire, EMS, what do you need? And then if you say EMS, it's like, hang on, let me get you to the ambulance. All right. And the administration felt that was poor customer service. They wanted a one, stop shop with all that. So I think that was the impetus of that. Why do I want it back? Yeah, it is more. It'll be a responsibility that I've always had since I've been there for near 20 years. But I think it really comes down to it's important to be able to figure out what the caller is saying, what kind of distress the caller it is, what is the message they're trying to convey, and understanding that. The medical terminology is a thing. A doctor's office that calls and says, we have this. If you don't know what that really means, you can, send the wrong resources. So prior to DEC taking over emergency medical dispatch, what would happen, feel free if I roll off, what would happen is a 911 call would come in and they would run it through emergency police or emergency fire dispatch. And then add the caller on to us. And we would then go through all the emergency medical dispatch questions. And because for these critical calls, where you're trying to get is to the pre-arrival instructions. How to do CPR, how to control bleeding in a gunshot or a stabbing or something like that. And so you got to get it right coming down, where when you're asking the questions, you got to, figure out, is it just a sick case? Is it a stroke? Is it a sick case or is it a seizure? Because what you're going to do at the end of that matters. So, yeah, I think it's a whole lot more responsibility, for the AMS authority, but we're used to that responsibility. We have been successful when we have had that responsibility. And, I think that just for the overall experience, getting the right resource, making sure you're getting a police officer when you need one, or fire truck when you need one, you got to get to the right conclusion in your call taking. Currently, if you would get both disciplines, let's say a traffic crash, you would get emergency police dispatch on the DEC side, emergency medical dispatch on the ambulance authority side. What's happening now is, without switching over to emergency medical dispatch, all we're getting is a crash with injuries. And we don't necessarily know, is it a pedestrian struck, is it a vehicle rollover, well, whatever the case might be. So
does that mean you're deploying, because I've noticed this with just crashes in my area, that there now just seems the ambulance that might be called when somebody hasn't necessarily needed that. Are you finding that you're deploying resources unnecessarily, or is it more that you're not getting deployed in time?
I would say overall, the data that I'm looking at is that in a lot of cases, it's being under prioritized. So whether it is something that is deserving of a red light response, it is not getting one. If it's deserving of a fire truck, it may, as a first response vehicle, it may not be getting one. We're seeing some of the data is showing that there may be just some default general sickness things, card that they're going to instead of, really digging in to better understand. But we do look behind what they type in. And let's say what we'll see, if it's dispatched as a sick call, and then in the comments, it says, faces drooping or shortness of breath or whatever the case might be, then we'll take it and upgrade it as necessary or call the person back. And so it's not a one-stop shop because we're not getting the good information, and so we're still having to call somebody back. Because we were always doing that. Every 15 minutes we'd call you back anyway.
Thank you.
So to kind of add to what Chip mentioned, so kind of twofold what led administratively to the change initially. There was an independent consultant review that pretty much looked at the fact that, so the way the system worked at first is you dial 911, and if you needed an ambulance, DCPR has always been the primary place that it receives all 911 calls. The only thing we were transferring out was either state police stuff that happened on the highway or medical calls that needed to be triaged through an emergency medical dispatch protocol system. One of the primary drivers initially was the review looked at the process and how it works. So you dial 911. Our folks would answer the call, find the location where an ambulance was needed, find out that there's a sick person that needs an ambulance. We get the name and the phone number, find out if they're conscious and breathing to see if a fire first response is needed. And then we would transfer the call to Richmond Ambulance. That process took about 60 to 65 seconds, which is what was addressed previously, that was the time saved. It wasn't that we were managing the EMS portion after that. And Richmond Ambulance Authority conducted their own dispatch, and they still do to this day. But the primary driver for the change was also state code and legislation that was passed requiring all 911 centers in the state of Virginia to have training in a discipline of emergency medical dispatch as well. I think there may be some agencies that, fortunately for the city, we had a Richmond Ambulance Authority who was already using a medical dispatch protocol. And so it was just deemed that it was most prudently that, well, if I have this protocol system and my folks are already trained in this discipline, it would not be prudent upon us to continue to transfer a call when I have the opportunity to go ahead and start triaging it with the training that we have in place already.
So to be clear, though, the state code, we were compliant in state code as it was under the previous system because Richmond Ambulance Authority was trained according to those.
It was one of those deals of we could kind of get a pass because we had a secondary PSAP that was triaging the calls that way, but technically speaking, we would not have been according to code as of July 1st of 2024 as the city. So to make sure we were compliant and not just have a pass. Sometimes when you have a situation like that, it just depends on who's in leadership at the time, whether or not they'll continue to let that pass. So the due diligence piece was to make sure that we followed the consultant's recommendation as well as following state code.
So this is sort of subject to interpretation is what I'm hearing. Also, I'm not sure yeah, it sounds like we were in compliance with state code. There was a semi-independent consultant who gets a lot of money from the city to do lots of independent studies. So I'm not sure how independent they can be at this point. And then that there is sort of subject to interpretation about the code and whether Richmond Ambulance Authority remained compliant under that code. I'm just trying to make sure this is very complex and.
It is. It's kind of complex. And that's why I say, so I think probably what would benefit us all is kind of looking at the system, where it came from to where it is, as well as visiting both centers and seeing how it works in live and once we're actually in productivity. And again, both of our agencies, the primary goal is to serve the citizens of Richmond. My primary concern as a citizen myself is if someone calls an ambulance, we just like to make sure that the resource gets there as fast as possible for police, fire, EMS, and animal care and control. And we still work with Chip's team on when we have those situations of call by call. If there's any discrepancies that come over, we receive a spreadsheet of those calls and we review those with our personnel as well to try to make sure we're brushing up on any of those areas.
Have you ever considered an opportunity for like cross training with Chip's team?
We
Given
have.
their given their
That was
expertise?
part of discussions initially when Chip mentioned the co-location. What co-location would look like is his personnel doing their at least comm center functions on the same comm center floor as ours. One of the benefits there that we have from a police and fire dispatch function is when we have an incident that consists of police, fire, and EMS, we're all on the same floor where you can have communications between police and fire dispatch, but we don't have that advantage present day with the ambulance authority being in a separate building. And so that was one of those things that was kind of considered years ago when we started down this road.
I want to say that, we've been back and forth with this for what, 3 or 4 months now. We finally got what we wanted, the side by side, and it looks like that maybe, I know we can't take a vote on this, I understand that, but maybe this needs to be, I need some help with this, Steve. Because it looks like this, I'm not, are you in favor to push this back to the Richmond Ambulance Authority or keep?
I think I would like to take up DECPR's invitation to go and see their facility. I have not yet, so I do understand, and I think I have a meeting next week with them to do that. And I think that we need to evaluate these numbers, code, have some conversations with policy and legal, and then we can formulate a path forward from there, if that suits you.
Corey, I have a question. When we, and I know my 2 colleagues wasn't on here when this happened, I thought this was like, maybe I was told wrong, but I was told like it would be like a trial to see how this would work out per se, and that's before we got up to 222,000 citizens.
Unfortunately, no, it was just a decision just made to go forward when that state code hit in July 1 of 2024, but it was never set as on a trial basis.
A lot of things happened that way. Thank you. Thank you. So we're gonna just come back at another. Right, so I guess we're just come back next month and y'all will decide then. That sound good? Because it looks like there's still some things that hasn't been worked out yet. But thank y'all. Thank you so much for coming back and for giving us more information. And before we close, I just want to say that I know I'm getting a lot of phone calls, and I apologize because I have citizens in my district, in my area, I should say precinct 806, that's where I live, that have very many concerns about this water. And I've tried to let them know that I do have some more water. I will be delivering more water this afternoon. And I want to thank the Teamsters for helping me, and the Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, who had cases of water brought to my house yesterday so I could personally go deliver them. And I want to thank the Teamsters for bringing 50 cases of water, and they unloaded those trucks for me to be giving out water until 10 o'clock last night. My phone rang until 2 a.m. People asking me to please bring them water today. And I'm gonna do that. But anyway, I apologize for, I just pray that this water crisis will be maybe fixed today so we don't have to expect our seniors that are 80 and 90 years old to be boiling water, carrying it from their stove to their sink to try to do dishes or try to cook with. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.